rock over there. I'll create a little distraction, and then you jump them, okay?
What's good, internet? Faded Gamer here, and today I got a review for Red Dead Redemption 2 for you. It's a new game from Rockstar. It came out earlier this month, in case you didn't know. I mean, I doubt it, because it's last time I heard it sold like over 17 million, and I'm not surprised, because to be honest, this is one of the best games I've ever played, and I've played a lot of games in my short life on this planet. And I just wanted to start off to say, like, the first thing, and I'm pretty sure whoever else makes a review about this game will also say, is like the developers definitely took a lot of time to just to add so much detail into the game. Like, open world games tend to have a lot of detail to them, but they went above and beyond. Like, I was watching a couple of videos about this game before it was coming out, because I was starting to get hype about it, and to also build on to that hype, I saw one of the things someone said was like the amount of lines that NPCs have in this game. Like, they have like thousands of more lines than all of the lines combined in Fallout 4, for instance, and that game is super detailed. Bethesda likes to do a lot of details in their open worlds, and the fact that Rockstar added more lines for not just the main characters but just random NPCs in the world shows that, like, it's just the amount of detail is really unprecedented in this game, and it really does show. And like, I've also watched a couple of different videos. I recently finished this game, by the way, the main story. Right now I'm in the epilogue, and because of how the game ends, I don't really want to spoil it, even though most people probably already know how it ends. Because of how the game ends, I'm gonna take my time with the epilogue, because I don't know, I'm feeling some sort of ways about it. Like, I got some mad feels right now. But it's really a fun game all in general. Like, the action is just awesome, and when you have like campfire settings like this, you actually get the sense of what the characters. Because I've also played the first Red Dead Redemption, by the way. I didn't actually beat it, because to become completely honest, I couldn't remember in the beginning if I beat it the first game or not. So what I did was, after I beat the game, I rewatched a couple of videos online on YouTube about Red Dead Redemption, and I realized one thing: I didn't beat it. Well, I remember now what had happened was, I was playing the game, I got pretty far in it, but once the online aspect came out, I just started to kind of play the online aspect, and I stopped playing the single player. Not to say that the single player wasn't good. I really did like John Marston. Matter of fact, I started to emulate him every now and then, like just say little random quips. Like, even after I stopped playing the first game altogether, I would find myself quoting John Marston every here and there. And that's the same way I feel about Arthur. And I was completely surprised about Arthur Morgan as a character, because I don't know, like, I had high expectations for the game, and I expected Arthur Morgan to be not as well of a character as John Marston, but to be completely honest, for me, I find him to be just a little bit better. And only because of how the game comes out and how you see him interact with the other gang members, not only John Marston, but with like Dutch and Hosea and Javier and Bill and all of the other characters. Like, you get more depth to these characters. And one of the best things about this game is, like, it's not all in the main story. For me, you have to actually you would have to put in the time to find out if these characters, to find out more about the characters, really. And I find that really interesting. Like, it's like there's some things you can miss completely. Like, I completely missed the fact that if you're playing as Arthur Morgan and you get thrown in jail, depending on how high your bounty is, there could be cutscenes where you have other gang members come in and actually break you out, like Dutch, Hosea, or John and Charles, depending on what city you're in and how high your bounty is. And I didn't know about those cutscenes until I saw it on the YouTube, and like, that just added to that thought that the developers putting a lot of details. And just like how Bethesda does with the details, they probably knew majority of it wasn't going to get found out, but luckily, thanks to YouTube, I feel like more people will see this, and more people will want to go out and find these events, because I'm half wanting to actually do that. What I want to do first is complete the epilogue before I start a new game, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a new game, and I'm not going to finish the main story for some reasons that should be made apparent to you if you finish the story. But with that being said, I want to kind of focus on a little bit more of the customization tools too. Like, for the weapons, for example, like, the amount of customizations are pretty awesome. Like, on the side of like functionality, like making it more accurate, there's like there's not as many choices, but when it comes to like making it look nice, as you just saw with my pump action shotgun, you can make it look really beautiful. And I gotta say, like that's probably one of my favorite things to do. Once I've realized you could really do that, it actually took me like I was in like a third into the game before I realized you could actually not only clean and maintain your weapons at the gun shop, but you could actually, you know, upgrade them and, you know, customize them. So once I started doing that, that basically added like 30 extra minutes for me staying in any town, just because I would run into the gunsmith to make sure I had all my stuff ready and whatnot. Although I thoroughly enjoyed this game, I do have to make a couple of points of criticisms. And I mean, they're not super big criticisms, and I feel like they're more just how my playstyle is for video games in general. One of the main ones, sure, like one or two. One of the main ones would be, yeah, the first one would be how it kind of starts off a little bit slow in the beginning. I wouldn't say it was boring for me, but it was a little slow. And I understand why they did it. It was to kind of set up, basically to set up what the game's about, like how the gang is, what their predicament is in that particular time frame. And it does help set up the game for the rest of the story, because it's like they're in trouble and they're moving to a place, they're getting away from the law, and that's kind of the prevailing theme in this story. Them always on the run because they're outlaws, and that's one of the things. Like, and it's interesting because it shows you, it gives you a sense of what outlaws were like back in those days. Even though this is a video game and it's still fiction, they make efforts to try and put some realism into it, like how like outlaws it's not always a fun life. Like there is a lot of action to it, but there are also times where it's really hard, and sometimes you gotta really stick together in order to get things through. And that's why, and that's what makes the story good, because the beginning parts of the game, they stick together, and I think that's one of the reasons why they make it through a lot of stuff. But as the game progresses, you see how the gang falls apart. So that's why it's one of the small criticisms, that it kind of starts off a little bit slow, but it's fun. It's fine for me personally, but I can see why others might consider it to be boring. And the other point of criticism would have to be just like how slightly sluggish the controls felt for me. And again, I think that's more of my playstyle, because eventually, as I got towards the end of the game, it became less of a nuisance. Like at first, it took me a while to get the use to how the horse reacts, because like it basically they made him to have a will of its own, each horse, and some horses are a little bit more unruly than others even after you tame them. And that I realized, which is interesting. It builds a little bit depth. At first it kind of annoyed me because the controls were a little bit wonky, but then as I got used to that, as I got used to like how horses can be unruly even after you tame them, it was fine. I got used to that, and it helped, and it actually made the game a little bit more interesting for me. But I mean, that I can understand though why some people might be like, oh, it was a little bit sluggy. And like, as for the whole aim assist thing, that's kind of been a staple of Red Dead Redemption, and to a lesser degree Grand Theft Auto, but that's kind of always been there, especially for Red Dead Redemption. It was in the first one, and it's in the second one, but you can tone it down if you really want to. Me, I didn't really want to. I might try and practice like free aiming a little bit before Red Dead Online comes out, maybe to show off or something like that. But yeah, aside from those, are my two main criticisms for this game. Because honestly, if I had to rate this game, I'd give it a 10 out of 10. I mean, there are some parts that are slow, but it's a 10 out of 10 game for me. And like game of the year and all of that. Like if you haven't bought this game, it's worth $60 in my opinion, just to get that out of the way right now. One of the things I wanted to bring up was that Rockstar tweaked the action gameplay a little bit. They revamped the Deadeye system to where you can actually level it up, and when you do, it'll highlight, like when you go into Deadeye mode, it'll highlight certain vital areas in an enemy, and you can shoot that for like an instant kill, or like they'll bleed out first and then they'll die, stuff like, which adds a layer of detail to it, which is pretty fun. And also, you can also aside from leveling up the Deadeye, you can level up your stamina to run longer, and I think faster. And you can also level up your health to have more health, and just adds a little bit more to the whole gameplay in general. On top of the fact that you can actually do more stuff too, like when you're fighting unarmed, you can actually grapple and block, which I'm not too sure if you could do back in the first Red Dead. I can't remember, but you definitely can do them now. And with the lasso, you can hog tie people, and you basically stow people away, and you can do like a a running thing with the lasso, and you can get them and then hog tie them. But every now and then, if depending on what type of NPC they are, they can actually fight back and stop you from hog tying them, which is pretty interesting. And I only really got that when I tried to hog tie like army, because you go up against you eventually start fighting like U.S. Army people in this game, and they're the only people who when I tried to hog tie, when I run up on them and hog tie, they actually would fight back and stop me from hog tying them, which was interesting. Everybody else, like the other Driscolls, those hillbilly bandits, and there's a whole bunch of other people. Every other NPC wouldn't do that. Not even the other lawmen, like not even the cops or lawmen would stop me from hog tying them, and it's interesting. So there's like that added layer of unpredictability to it. But also, aside from grappling with like bare hands or with lasso, you can do that with guns as well. All you gotta do is get up close. You can run up and tackle them like I just did there, or you could even like get up close and like kind of just like do this like grappling animation, which leads them to automatically shoot them, which is interesting, because then it also puts in a more layer of depth to the gunplay in this game, because not only can you do stuff with the guns, not just shooting people, you can run up and like you can melee somebody and then shoot him, which is cool. And you can also, the fact is, there's also a whole bunch more guns in this game than there was in the first Red Dead, which is cool too. It adds itself to the whole detailed part, because it gives you more tools to play around with, like not just a revolver or shotgun or rifle. You actually get like semi-automatic pistols, you get the Mauser pistol, you have like different types of guns, which helps to keep the gameplay fresh for me overall, which I truly enjoy. It definitely makes this game, again, it makes this game a 10 out of 10 for me. One of the other reasons why this game is a 10 out of 10 for me. A couple of the other reasons is how, like, in certain instances, like when you're playing with different characters, I like how they have their little quips too. Like not only in this mission, you'll have people talk to each other, like just like how you see the other gang members like support you when you're fighting, like especially how depending on how your honor is too. Like you'll have like this mission in particular, I have a feeling if I haven't done a whole bunch of missions with my gang members, I think this mission would have played out a little bit different, and which is interesting, which means that there's different ways, because there is different endings to it, and there's also different, like, I've seen the different endings, and it depends on how your honor is and what have you done for like the other gang members, which is cool. And I like that it also shows in this mission as well, and that level of detail in this game adds itself to like just being more interesting, like seeing what happens if I decide to do a little bit more side missions or focus on other missions, like robbing homesteads with different gang members, or robbing banks with different gang members, or going out and just like doing activities with different gang members, and seeing how that changes the overall narrative, just in general. And it's fun, and like that's one of the best parts of this game, like the interactions between Arthur and the other members of the gangs, like I've said earlier, but I want to get into a little bit more detail with that. Every now and then in this game, you have a mission where you can go off with just one or two gang members, and you start to learn more about that gang member. Like, it's very, very like, personal. Like, you start to grow attachments to these gang members. Like, that's how I ended up growing attached to most all, like Lenny, Sean, and even to a degree Dutch and Jose. To Dutch, I still think he's a bad guy, but I am definitely a little bit more sympathetic to him because of like the personal missions, me and having Arthur and him do missions together. It just grew my like interaction with this guy, even though I do still think he's still a jackass. But he genuinely cared for Arthur and John and Jose. They were a family. Like before this game started, and earlier, like you get the hints throughout this game. If you look at certain things, like the pictures that Arthur keeps in his wagon, the certain little comments he makes about Hosea and Dutch and John, like how Arthur talks about them, like the past that they have with each other, you get the sense that yeah, they're a family. And like it changes though, because people change, especially in this type of lifestyle that these guys live. They're outlaws, but you get the sense that they genuinely cared for each other. at certain points in the game, and that does I feel like that does change eventually, because it does eventually does change in the first game and the ending of the second game, which is interesting. But one of the other things too that makes this game a 10 out of 10 for me is just the stunning locales, like the how the weather is in this game and how it rolls over the map. Check this out. Look at this. Look at how this storm is. I was just riding through. I forgot what I was doing in here. I just was like, you know what? This is just beautiful. I'm gonna put this in the cinematic and just ride. It's like this, like how the fact that they were able to push this kind of level of graphic fidelity in a PlayStation 4. I'm playing on PlayStation 4. For the fact that they're able to get this kind of stuff out of here, just to me, it's beautiful. Like, look, like I didn't even break that guy out because I wanted to just keep going and just look at this thunderstorm that's rolling across these plains. Like, it's just the lighting, the rain, the sound effects, the lightning. They got it down perfectly, and it does roll across the landscape. Like, I think I continue to ride until I get to the edge of this storm, and I look back and I can see the clouds and the rain falling, and I can see where I'm at that the rain isn't falling. I can see the clouds moving, and I was just stunning. Again, it's an unprecedented level of detail to this game that just makes it a 10 out of 10. And I don't know how many more times I can say that, but it truly is a magnificent game. Like, not just for these graphics. And one of the things I learned from watching YouTube videos as well is that you can actually get hit by lightning in this game. It's a incredibly rare occurrence. Like, it's as rare as actually getting struck by lightning in the real world. Like, you'd have to, like, it's a really rare occurrence, which is funny and ironic. In conclusion, this game is a masterpiece. It blends themes of revenge, betrayal, redemption, family, loyalty, all into one very entertaining story and very compelling story. It's a story of Arthur Morgan, an outlaw who chooses redemption, who at the very end who chooses to be a good man because he sees how this lifestyle eventually changes people he believes to be all good men, like the person he feels to be his father, Dutch, his family members like Hosea and John, who he does consider family. Maybe not so the rest of the Vanderlyn gang, but he does care for all of them. But these guys were his family, and he had to redeem himself by leaving that, which is just a very powerful message for me. And it's a really good game that'll be people are going to be talking about for a long time to him. Now, I'm the Faded Gamer. I've talked about this game long enough. I just want to say it's a 10 out of 10 game. If you haven't bought it, please do. It's worth $60. And I'll see you guys in the next episode.
But we care for the merchantmen who do our states maintain. To them we dance this round, around, around. To them we dance this round, around, around. And he that is a bully boy, come pledge me on this ground, 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 ground. Oh, bravo! Bravo! Well, you know, we should not let the folks back camp think we had too much fun. Indeed not. All right. I think we're gonna be okay. I know. I always know. Whenever I got you two by my side, things are gonna be just fine.